Hello, and welcome to KiwaniTalk. My name is Scott Murdoch. I'm a member of the Dearborn Kiwanis Club, and we're here today to speak to Nabih Ayed, who is the founder and prominent local attorney of the Arab American Civil Rights League. He's going to talk to us today about civil rights and about his organization and how it protects the members of our community. So welcome joining me today here, Nabih.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about exactly what the Arab American Civil Rights League is, how it was founded, and some of the history?
Sure, absolutely. I founded the Arab American Civil Rights League approximately over 11 years ago. I realized I was also in a number of civil rights arena. I was chair of the advisory board for another civil rights organization, Arab American Civil Rights Organization. I worked a lot with different groups of civil rights organizations back in the day with the ACRL, CARE, ADC, and others. And then, after 9/11 hit, we all seen the terrorist acts of 9/11. When you fast forward about 9-10 years, I started to see we, as Arab Americans, were becoming more unpopular than we were immediately after 9/11. That struck me at odds, as you would think that as time passes, people will have a memory, say that, become more normal and forget the incidents of 9/11. And I found that our community is becoming more unpopular and the discrimination was starting to increase against the community. So I felt that we had to do something. We had to address these head-on as opposed to asking for permission from Washington, our national office, and what have you. So I founded the Arab American Civil Rights League. We put a very dynamic board together. The head of the NAACP, Reverend Dr. Wendell Anthony, is on that board, the biggest office in our country. We have prominent individuals on that board. We have state, U.S. Congressperson Rashida Tlaib on that board. A number of individuals are from all walks of life, Arab, Christian, Chaldean, Muslim, and different nationalities. So I wanted to I wanted it to be represent the community. Being home to the largest concentration of Arab Americans outside of the Middle East in Dearborn, we started the office there. And we took on immediately some major cases. We took on cases such as the only football case in the country where they charged individuals playing football, high school kids playing football on the field, basically, for so-called late hit. We ended up getting that case dismissed. The ACRL, we handled that. We've changed law in the no-fly list, where Arab Americans were being discriminated against with this so-called National Terrorism Screening Center put on by the Justice Department. And we took on the government on it. We sued. We went up to the Court of Appeals. We were able to change the law in this region of the country, where making the idea of the flight is a constitutional right, and for Arab Americans to be allowed to fly. We took on the bank industry when Arab Americans were having their bank accounts being closed just because of their rate that they just didn't want. They felt suspicious activity for Arab businessmen, when in reality that's how they conduct when you bring cash and say from gas stations or party stores and what have you. We were able again to change the law on that in this region of the country. We had to go again to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals to make that law. We ended up, even during the Trump administration with the Muslim ban, we took that on. We filed an injunction against President Trump and the White House for not allowing individuals that had green card holders from certain countries to be able to return back. So otherwise, if that was not successful, those individuals would not have been able to return back home. So we got a permanent injunction on that in the federal courthouse. Those are just a few of the cases that we take on every day, in addition to a lot of the work that we do, day-to-day operations, taking on complaints and attending to people's concerns of discrimination.
So can you tell us a little bit more? I find it very interesting about the cases about the football players that were charged for late hits.
Yeah, this is a case where they charged 4 Arab American students basically for a late hit during the game. We're not talking about in the locker room and on or on the streets or what have you. In the game, pads are on, shoulder pads, helmets are on. For a late hit, they charged them criminally. All these 4 students were on the dean's list. All these 4 students had scholarships. They were attempting to charge them with felonies. They got misdemeanor charges against them, and basically were attempting to ruin their future. So we stepped in and said, you just can't do that. You assume the risk when you play football. Just like when a boxer goes in the ring, you assume the risk if you're going to get hit, maybe under hit or what have you. So we showed the National Association of High School Football a playbook and said, when somebody does a late hit or even a fight, you get disciplined, you can get suspended a game, you could get a timeout, or you can't play a game or two. And I said, we feel that, just because they're Arab and Muslim Americans, they shouldn't be treated any differently. We couldn't even find case law in this entire country on individuals playing football. We had to go to Canada or the United Kingdom to even see something similar. I said, the prosecutor's office, they don't go after Dominic Sue when he was pounding somebody's head on national TV, but yet they go after these 4 high school players, for doing a late hit. So I think the courtroom was filled, the media was all over on that, and it was again first of its kind in the country. And thank God we had a great judge, Judge Plawecki in Dearborn Heights, that seen what this is and basically ended up dismissing the charges.
Well, that's excellent to be able to hear.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple of other major cases that you worked with, particularly protecting people's civil rights. Can you tell me some more about them?
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole host of cases that we take on day in and day out to addressing, people's constitutional rights. As you know, after 9/11, the Arab Americans have become, and the Muslim Americans have become kind of the canaries in the minefield. And, the great saying with Martin Luther King Jr. was, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So even though you may not be Arab Americans or you may not be a Muslim American, again, any kind of injustice eventually finds its way to other folks, non-Arab, non-Muslim. So that being said, we're still fighting the terrorist watch list. That's a huge issue with this community. Arab Americans are being stopped at they're questioned, interrogated 3-4 hours, sometimes missing their flight. And those folks that tend to be on the list, believe it or not, are heavy paying, successful taxpayers. Someone paying millions of taxes a year. And around the country, the continuous harassment and putting them on the so-called watch list. And they don't tell you why you're on this watch list. They don't explain to you why you're on this watch list. They just say, whatever, national security. So, but in the courts tend to associate it with, it's an inconvenience. They stop you 3-4 hours. Well, it's not just an inconvenience. You're basically being associated with terrorism, associated terrorism. I mean, what do you tell your little child when you're at the airport and say, Dad, why are they treating you like this? Or why are they questioning you like this, and things of this nature? And besides the fact that these individuals, that if they travel overseas, this list becomes shared with governments around the world and some of them private entities as well. And the governments around the world are not that kind, if I would say. They don't understand constitutional rights as much as the United States does. And if they take you up to a government building, you may never ever leave that government building because the United States has you on so-called a watch list. So it hinders the trust between the community and law enforcement. It hinders trade and business. And it basically stereotypes a certain group of people without any just cause.
So can anyone be affected by this, the terrorism watch list?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, we have an individual out of New York, for instance, that, he's not Arab or Muslim, but he travels with his boss. And because he traveled with his boss, he became on that list. And his family became on that list. There are suppliers, for instance, that for some businessmen, if they travel together on a business trip, they become on that list. And then they don't want to do business anymore with that individual because they think it's going to be hindering their ability to do business. Some of this information gets related to banking industry. Some of this information, of course, goes to governmental institutions around the world, and they won't tell you who put you on that list. They don't tell you how to get out of that list, and you have to basically bring a federal lawsuit, which, as you know, is very difficult for some individuals. Some of them don't have the means or the know-how to take on the government in these types of cases. We've never been able to take somebody off the list without bringing a federal lawsuit, unfortunately. They say they have this TRIP redress program with the TSA. That really never gets you anywhere. You file this trip to try to remove. They really don't tell you much of anything. It's still a work in progress. We've been dealing with the senator's office and in D.C. and trying to get legislation, try to change the policy. We've met with Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary, as well as the CBP and the ICE commissioners, and trying to address the importance, how it's affecting this community to a large degree.
So with regard to the list, is it the government's burden of proof to be able to prove why you should be on this list, or they simply don't even have to answer?
They don't have to answer, and they actually don't even admit whether there's a list or not in the federal filings. And then once you get past if you're lucky enough to get past that, you get a good judge, you get past the motion to dismiss that normally the government hits you with once you bring this action, they use the law enforcement privilege and other privileges that are available to the government. And we're always in a position to say, why is it that the government uses this? And they put this 4 S's on your boarding pass, which means basically you're subject to secondary screening. You're giving away one of the best tools law enforcement has, which is surprise. So if I do actually have an intent to hurt the United States or national interest, knowing that I'm on the so-called list by their action of just questioning me all the time already tells me, gives me a hint, I got to up my game because I'm on this list. I got to do something, what have you. And besides all that, though, there are simple tools available to the government on very minimal probable cause. If somebody's doing something illegal, they have the tools and abilities to go ahead and get a warrant, search their homes, do everything. Why continue this harassment, waste government resources, break the trust between government and the community? And at the end of the day, it's just pure bad business for the government of our nation.
So where do you have an office and a staff for the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually down the street at our Arter Drive. The office is located there. We have executive director Miriam Sharara. We have also staff that help, and we have volunteers as well. And when you see an event like the last one that we sold out over a couple weeks ago, our annual dinner, we have a lot of staff that help and volunteers that help. We get extra work during that time to make us put these things together. We have a lot of volunteer attorneys as well on the board and off the board from the community. They always help with some of the cases. We work with other sister organizations to address a number of issues in the community because, again, civil rights is a universal thing. It may not be, you may be driving while black while you're flying while Arab. Same kind of concept. It's just discrimination is discrimination, So there's there's common denominators of discrimination that all communities can attest to and be familiar with.
How do you fund the organization?
That's a good question. It's never easy to do a nonprofit 501c3. In the earlier years, I actually had to put out of my pocket for a long time until we became self-sufficient after a number of years, where now it just comes from corporations, community organizations. We're proud to say that they believe in the mission, they believe in the cause, and we get funded from a whole number of different organizations. We have Team Wellness for the mental health providers. We have the Surgical Center. We have DTE. We have Greektown Casinos. We have Huntington Bank. The list goes on and on.
So you have a combination of corporate donors that recognize the good business that it is to support individual civil rights?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when an issue comes up, it sure hell saves a lot on litigation costs when you can call up the other entity and say, we have a situation, we'd like to sit down and resolve it without the need to bring in litigation or without the need to having a press conference and taking this issue public or what have you. So it builds a good relationship with those community partners and organizations that we can work better together at these things and foster a more sensitive and understanding atmosphere in the workplace and the community that we serve.
Well, we'll talk a little bit further about the organization here when we come right back.
Who is a kid? Well, that's a kid. And another. Look, a gaggle of them. Or is it a herd? Litter? Pride. But what about her? Tell her she's not a kid. Or him. So how do we tell who is a kid? Height? Age, maybe. But some of us have to grow up faster than others. A kid. A kid. A kid wants to make the world better. And one day, he just might. Is a kid fearless? Vulnerable? Strong? Nervous? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
Welcome back to KiwaniTalk. I'm Scott Murdoch, and I'm joined again here by Nabih Ayed, the founder and prominent local attorney in Detroit area for the Arab American Civil Rights League. And so we were discussing more about the league itself and some of the activities that you do. I wanted to get to some of the basics, I guess, on some people may not understand exactly what exactly are my civil rights and why should they be protected and what is it that protects those civil rights. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, civil rights, if you have to explain in a layperson's term, it's basically you being treated differently based on one of your protected classes, whether it be your religion, creed, ethnicity, religion, or sex. Now sex as well, or sexual orientation. The fact is that we have, the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act that was codified in 1974 by Daisy Elliott and Mel Larson, a Republican senator and a Democratic senator that joined together. Actually, the ACRL, I believe my first annual dinner, we awarded both of them. They were still around. We brought them up. One was in a wheelchair, but we brought them up and awarded them for such a monumental, because Michigan was one of the first states in the country that basically ended up with the Civil Rights Act. And of course, you have Title VII and the Section 1983 under the federal system that protects, and its counterpart in the federal system that protects for individuals under civil rights.
And those are particular laws.
Yeah, absolutely laws. I
so.
mean, without laws, you'll continue to have the challenges and everything that you have. And it's, civil rights is not just important for the individual. It's important for business. It was important for the country, it's political stability, and everything else to grow. So the idea is that the laws protect you if your employer or your government or your law enforcement agency discriminates against you because of your race, religion, creed, or ethnicity, or all those protected classes. And the key item is that if you're being treated differently based on those. See, I have a lot of individuals that come in my office and they say, well, my boss is a son of SOB and he's this and he's that, and I go, I'm listening. I'm like, he's just an SOB. He's not really a discriminatory person. He's just a bad person. Okay, we have to look at, was that discrimination based on one of the protected classes? Did he treat you in this fashion or treat him in this fashion because of that, of his background? The same idea with if you were discharged. A lot of people say, well, I was discharged. Are you an at-will employee? Yes. Well, an at-will employee, they could discharge you for any reason or no reason at all. Some of the employees just don't understand, though. You can't discharge them based on one of the major factors you discharge them was based on the protected class. One of the elements of you being in the protected class under the civil rights laws. And that's one of the things I think some employers make a mistake on. They discharge them because one of them was a major reason or something. Now, it's always not easy to get why the employer, because of course they do a certain pretext and what have you. So you have to really dig in deep in this legislation and I'm sorry, in the litigation to expose what was the real true cause of the discharge of this individual.
Well, and I guess with the process of a lawsuit, there is what they call a discovery process, right?
Absolutely.
And where the court requires them to disclose information, and you can ask them information to
Right.
find out about that sort of information.
Absolutely. And again, with the ACRL, we take on cases every day that they try to do this work. We work with counterparts. We work with the EOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We work with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights and with their investigators to try to help some of these individuals when they have certain complaints. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, so then that's when they have to turn it over to a law office. Either they turn it over to our office, other attorneys around the state, and to bring a cause of action under the civil rights laws. And from there, the discovery continues. And what we're trying again to look for is that in this type of circumstance, did this company or organization or governmental entity or law enforcement treat this individual differently than they treated other similarly situated individuals? And that's not always easy to get, because sometimes there may be no other similarly situated individuals. So you have to dig a little bit deeper and exercise and apply the law at hand in the jurisdiction you're at, in the state or federal, and really try to expose that discriminatory animus that is there by the employer or by the hiring agency.
I've heard some people say, well, why should these people get special rights? And it's really not about anything special or special rights, is it?
It's not about special rights. In fact, a lot of people don't realize, being an African American, you can be sued. Being an Arab, you can be sued. Being a Muslim, we've done it. We went after that individual that discriminated against things. It's not about who's doing the discrimination, it's who's it been done to. If it's done because of because you're one of the protected class, you can go after, and it can be the same individual from your same class that basically discriminated against you. And it's not a specialty. Well, what it is that to protect you, again, our nation, our society decided that we cherish and we understand the importance of diversity and inclusion, and we can only foster and grow as a nation with all of that included. It may look at first that you're getting a special treatment. In fact, you're just trying to catch up. You're trying to be treated equally as your counterparts. So if somebody comes late once or twice, a Caucasian individual, employer's okay with it. As soon as an African American or an Arab or a Muslim comes late once, they're out of here. Okay, that's one of those kind of, you're treating me differently. Now again, if it was based on, again, this employer's belief it was because of the protected class, then it would be discrimination.
So it really is that they should be treated differently, and that someone is not discriminating against them because they belong to this particular group.
Absolutely. And again, the law is not really, what it's doing is that making everybody be treated equally under the eyes of the law. And we want to make sure that, again, if you're a bad boss, you're just a bad boss, but you may treat this Arab American or this Muslim or this African American or Hispanic just the way you treated all your Caucasian white counterparts. There's nothing discriminatory about that. You could just be, again, a mean boss to everybody. But the idea is that if you treated certain individuals and you singled them out because of one of the protected class reasons, and that's where it gets into the illegality and the legal stage of under the civil rights laws.
So you have a lot of volunteers with the organization. Do you have to be an attorney to volunteer for the ACRL?
No, absolutely not. We have all the way from high schools to colleges, students, seniors, a number of individuals that come and volunteer, and they believe in the mission. They understand the importance of that. We're all in this together. If history showed us anything, that it really doesn't matter what background you are, what religion you are, so long as you believe in this nation and care for this nation, and care for your fellow man and your neighbor. It is in the best interest of the community to work together, because we all have to live in the community. We all have to be able to help one another in that sense. So, us at ACRL, and even I think civil rights organization understands, and if history showed us anything, is that justice is never taken, as you have to take it. It's never given, okay? You have to take it, which means we have to fight. And that's why we call it the Fight for Justice Gala, our annual dinner. It's never done in ease. No one's ever just going to give their power away to you, but you have to fight to level the playing field.
So it's similar to the phrase, freedom isn't free.
Freedom isn't
right?
free, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, all right, so if someone is interested in volunteering, how can they volunteer for the organization?
They can go to our ACRL website. If they just type in Arab American Civil Rights League or ACRL, it comes right up. They can go on there. We have the website, we have the events, we have contact that you can get up. It shows our board on there and the events and what have you. And they can just reach us, send an email to our executive director. We'd be happy to include them. We have, we also have another event that comes up in a couple of months from now. It's called the NAACP ACRL Justice Night event. This is where both organizations, the largest NAACP office in the country here in Detroit, as well as the ACRL, join forces to award individuals in the judicial center or the legal, I should say, community to uphold constitutional rights. Either there's a great judge that made a hard decision to uphold the constitutional rights of some individual, an attorney that volunteered, done some wonderful work, or it could even be a prosecutor. We've awarded a U.S. attorney before, depending on what they've done in their position in upholding civil rights.
Oh, that's very good. It'd be nice to be able to hear. So, again, can you tell me a little bit more particulars on the event? Is this open for other people to come to and help support?
We have this event. It's normally sponsored by Greektown Casino. We only have one sponsor because, again, it's judges and what have you. You don't want any corporations, any influence. So we have a number of judges, a number of dignitaries that come through. It's normally we have it on a rooftop, at the music hall rooftop once a year. It's a wonderful event. We've awarded presidents of universities, justices, state, U.S. attorneys, federal judges, Court of Appeals judges, again, for upholding some important decisions in their courtroom. And it's the Arab community as well as the African American community. As you know, we have such a very large African American community, and we have a very large Arab American community here. And for years back in the day, they weren't really talking to each other, even though we're neighbors, we're across border lines and what have you. And the relationship, because of organizations like ACRL and NAACP, we've been able to work closely together on many fronts, and I think the relationship has just expanded and grown very nicely throughout the years over these periods because of those relationships.
So if someone is not able to attend this event, or you also have a gala at least once a year for fundraising, are they able to send in donations to you because they want to support this cause?
Absolutely. I mean, we have donations, believe it or not, Scott. We have them from around the country. It may be $10, it may be $15, it may be $20, whatever it is. We're always welcome to take donations, because at the end of the day, I don't get paid for this as a founder and a board member. I was chair of the board for 6 years. We don't get paid. We volunteer our time. The board volunteers their time. A lot of community members volunteer their time. We sit with a lot of the higher-ups when they come in from D.C., with government agencies, legislatures, day in and day out to address concerns of the Arab American community. We just, as they say, talk the talk, we walk the walk. We're in those board meetings, we're in those things, we're in your face saying, this is what's going on. We have the pulse of the community, and we need you to understand how this is affecting our community. So we have that pulse. We want to make sure that the people who are responsible understand the challenges that are happening to the Arab American community and the Muslim community in this region, because we are such a large force in this community. Again, one of the largest concentrations of Arab Americans outside of the Middle East. So we're definitely a force to be reckoned with over here, and I think that the Arab American per capita is most wealthiest and most educated in the nation, and I think we don't have to apologize to anyone over that. I think we're doing a wonderful job in the community now. As we have U.S. congressmen, mayors, commissioners, solicitor generals. So the list is going and expanding. We are part and fabric of this society, from Steve Jobs, to all the wonderful things that we've been doing in this nation and in this state.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate you telling us about the ACRL, and it's a worthwhile cause, and I hope that the community provides as much support as available to you.
Thank you so much, Scott. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And thank you for watching KiwaniTalk. We'll see you next time.